Howdy folks, I am standing out in a pasture that we cleared several years ago. That particular pasture was just like this, solid yaupon under the huge wonderful oak trees, and this understory of yaupon and some grapevines and other scrub brush type plants absolutely totally shades out this property so that there was no grass that could grow at all. And one of my YouTube subscribers had a really thoughtful idea, and that was to have me detail the different types of grasses that I have on my farm. I have 4 principal grasses, and I'm going to go through each of them individually as we talk through this. We are just coming out of a drought. We've had about 5 or 6 weeks of no rain, and yesterday and the day before we had a cumulative total of about 1 inch and 3/4, and so the grass got a good drink. You can see it's still pretty brown out here in places, but I'm standing in a place that the grass is really green, and the grass is really green here because this was where we had a burn pile and burned all the scrub brush, and so lots of ashes here. And this particular grass here and in this entire pasture is Jigs Bermuda grass. And this is a grass that you have to sprig. So in other words, you have to plow up the soil, level it, and then we come in with a machine that actually takes baled Jigs Bermuda grass, and they have a machine that cuts the roots off just below the soil surface and bales it, and then we plant those sprigs and into the soil, and it puts them just beneath the soil surface, and then we roll that grass or that soil with a big heavy roller that seals the soil surface, and then those sprigs or the roots actually start to grow. And so you have sporadic Jigs Bermuda grass growing out of those little sprigs, and then it eventually spreads to cover the entire area. So this grass, I don't care for it too much, I'll be honest with you. It's really good in the summertime, but in the wintertime it's just does not have any nutritive value. You can see we've got really nice leaves. They're high energy. The cattle will generally eat about the top third, and then the stuff that's underneath is very stemmy, and they don't care for that unless they're forced to eat it. And obviously with rotational grazing, we don't want to force them to eat it. But you can see it's a dense mat of old grass that's decomposing down on the soil surface, and it's a great grass in the spring and summer, but again in the winter time it doesn't have any nutritive value. So this is one of the improved grasses I have on my place, and we'll go plot to plot and I'll show you others. The next grass I want to talk to you about is Pensacola Bahia grass. And as you see the cattle out here grazing, this is a Bahia grass pasture, Bahia. It's a hybrid grass that was brought into Texas from Florida, and it's a good grass. I like it. It's called poor man's Bermuda grass of sorts. It's not a Bermuda grass at all, but in Texas people tend to fertilize their pastures, and or at least used to. Now that fertilizer's so high, everybody's trying to regroup and think of different options. And I have grown to actually like Bahia grass quite well over the last several years, and the reason I like it is that it can survive and do well without fertilizer, with the regenerative grazing and the regenerative ranching that I'm trying to do, and moving the cows. So we mob and mow and move. This grass does well. Now, if you let it go too long, it gets tough, and so you want to try to graze it during the vegetative stage, and that's relatively straightforward, just typical regenerative ranching principles. But this grass, when it's young and vegetative, is very, very palatable. The cows like it. And the one thing I really like about this grass is it grows up, it greens up first thing in the spring before any of the Bermuda grasses do. It stays green longer in the fall and into winter than any of the Bermuda grasses do. And the cattle really truly prefer this grass from early spring till about mid-June, and then this grass really puts on some growth if there's adequate moisture. And the grass leaves get super tough, and there's a lot of lignin in there which they don't digest. So about June, when it starts to get really hot in Texas, they start to prefer the Bermuda grasses I have. And at the end of the day, I really like this grass. You can see we're trampled some grass here. These cattle are going to be in here for another 24 hours, and then I'm moving them on to a different pasture or a different paddock. But this is a good stand of Bahia grass. This whole pasture is in good shape. We've trampled some grass. We're feeding the soil. The cows really like it until it gets tough, and this is really tough right here. This grass right here is too mature. I was saving this particular pasture because we were so shy on rain, and I didn't want to use all my forage up not knowing whether we were going to get rain or not. And again, we're the day after 1.75 inches worth of rain over the past few days, and this grass really will green up quick and grow quite a bit, so we can stockpile some forage going into the winter time. So Bahia grass, a nice grass. I personally like it. It grows, it sends up a stem once the leaves leaf out, and this stem is very long. It's got a split seed head, produces a ton of seeds, absolute ton of seeds. And it's hard to get rid of. If you've got Bahia grass and you don't like it, you're going to have a hard time getting rid of that grass. They make sprays for it, which obviously I don't like. But this grass does not produce the tonnage of feed that fertilized coastal Bermuda grass, Jigs Bermuda grass, and Tifton Bermuda grass do. But in my opinion, it's a very, very good forage for the cattle. So that's the Bahia grass story. Here is a 5 to 6 acre pasture of Tifton 85 Bermuda grass. Again, another hybrid Bermuda grass that's planted with sprigs. You're looking at this after I've grazed it about 2 weeks ago. And you see a lot of brown in it, primarily because the tips were taken off by the cattle, so the stemmier stuff with high lignin content that they don't care for is left. But this grass, after a rain, you can see what we have. This particular grass has a much broader leaf than coastal Bermuda grass. Jigs Bermuda grass is the next broadest leaf after coastal, and then Tifton has a very, very broad leaf. And this grass grows on runners, and it will grow at 3 to 4 inches a day during the heat of the summer with adequate moisture. A really good grass. The cattle love this grass, but when it gets stemmy like this, they back off of it and they're going to go to something that's a little bit more tender. You can mob them and force them to graze this. I'm pretty much liking not grazing that understory of grass because it preserves soil moisture via preventing evaporation. But Tifton 85, really good grass, fast spreading, and usually when you sprig any of these Bermuda grasses, you're putting a sprig, probably maybe a sprig, which is just a little segment of that grass, every foot, maybe every 1.5 feet or 2 feet, and then it spreads and fills in from there. So another good grass. I like this grass, but for year round, I'm getting a little bit more partial to the Pensacola Bahia grass. This is an area of coastal Bermuda grass that was grazed about a week and a half ago, and you can see there's just a dense mat of grass left. This is a sprigged variety of grass as well, so it's a hybrid Bermuda grass. It's got a very fine leaf, and look at this mat that's left. I mean, it's incredible. And so that stuff down there is going to feed the soil microorganisms, the mycorrhizal fungi, all the things that provide fertility to this grass. And this is a very palatable grass. The fine leaf makes the cattle like it. Certainly I could have grazed this a lot shorter, but elected not to do that because we were in a mini drought, and this grass actually goes dormant. That's why it's so brown. Part of the reason is because they took the tips off, and that leaves the brown grass underneath. But it also went dormant, and it's now going to bounce back really quick with the rain we just had. And so that's coastal Bermuda grass, and I'll show you a area of ungrazed coastal Bermuda grass so you can see what it looks like when we turn the cattle onto it. Here's a little aside that I just wanted to show you. This is, again, we're in the post oak savanna area of Texas, and we intentionally, this place was totally covered with oak trees, cedar trees, and yopon, which is that bush underneath there, and the whole place would look just like that. You couldn't walk through it. And we came in and had a track hoe and a dozer working and taking out the understory of brush. We left a lot of big cedars. Those are the cedars. I don't like cedars much, but I do like to leave them for shade. And then we left all the good oaks, and it's beautiful in here. The cattle have plenty of shade. The grass really grows well underneath those trees, and it has less lignin content because it's shaded during the summer time when it's hot. So really like how that turned out. And I know one thing, you want to leave more trees than less, because you will lose some trees. You can see that tree right there is dying, and it will have to be taken out. Here's a tree across the way, nice big oak that will have to be taken out. You can see it's dead. So you're going to lose a few, and you want to take out sparingly, but it really improves the landscape. It's a beautification project of sorts, but it does not affect your pasture with regard to not allowing grass to grow. It's not shaded enough that the grass won't grow well. In fact, it probably grows better. So that's just a bonus point that I wanted to make for this video. This is ungrazed coastal Bermuda grass. Very fine leafed. It's a good palatable grass. Cattle really like it. But what I've found is they really, like I've said previously, they really prefer the Bahia grass from about March 15th to early June. Then when it gets hot and dry, they go to the coastal and the Tifton and really prefer it over the Bahia. And then the Jigs, typically midsummer is when they prefer the Jigs. So I think it's good to have all these grasses in there. When they really like one, they're doing well and they hit it hard, and when they are less enthused because of lignin content with another variety, they'll go to one of the other hybrid varieties. I don't have any native grass on my place, or if I do, it's very sparse. But these are the 4 grasses that I have, and I'm very fortunate to have a selection for these cattle as far as perennial warm season grasses. And so if I was going to rank them in order of my preference, Bahia would be number 1, number 2 would be Tifton 85, and number 3 would be the coastal Bermuda grass, and number 4 Jigs. I don't think I will ever plant any more Jigs, but the coastal is good, Tifton 85 is good. I just want to show you over the fence here. That's all coastal, growing in a little ravine of sorts that's coming to feed this little pond. And so, good grasses. I hope this video helps you as you make selections, and I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments down below. Please subscribe. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope I'm providing content that is useful to you and your regenerative ranching endeavors. Have a great day.